Shalom. First and foremost, giving honor and praise unto Yah, the creator of heaven and earth. One to state emphatically, this is going to be considered by some to be controversial, some to be enlightening, and some who don't care. Torah does not come from maat. This should be common sense, but such is not the case for all. In the past, we went over the fact that the land of Israel and the people are not from Egypt. The reasons for such come from geographic and spiritual reasons. Tacitus, in his history of the Jews, writes the following. Many again state that they, the Jews, were a race of Ethiopian origin, who in the time of King Cepheus were driven by fear and hatred of their neighbors to seek a new dwelling place. Tacitus continues to write the following. Moses, wishing to secure a future for the authority over the nation, gave them, the Israelites, a novel form of worship, opposed to all that are practiced by other men. So I wanted to stop there at that part because you got some who try to sit there and state that the Israelites got their culture from the Egyptians. Yet you see a historian stating emphatically that the Israelite culture was different than that was of other men. He continues to state the following about him and the Israelites. Things sacred with the Romans, with the Jews have no sanctity, while the Jews allow what with us the Romans is forbidden. The Jews slay the ram, seemingly in the region of Hamon, and they sacrifice the ox, because the Egyptians worship it as Apis. They abstain from swine's flesh in consideration of what they suffered when they were infected by leprosy to which this animal was liable. By their frequent fasts, they still bear witness to the long hunger of former days. And the Jewish bread made without leaven is retained as a memorial of their hurried season of corn. We are told that the rest of the seventh day was adopted because this day brought with it a termination of their toils. After a while, the charm of indolence beguiled them into giving up the seventh year also to inaction. Quite different is the Jews' things about things of God. The Egyptians worship many animals and images of monstrous form. The Jews have a purely conception of deity as one in essence. They call those profane who made representation of God in human shape or perishable materials. They believe that God to be supreme and eternal, neither capable of representation or decay. They therefore do not allow any images in their cities, much less in their temples. So that right there is from the historian Tacitus. And he's speaking about the differences between the culture of the Jews, or that is to say, the Israelites, and the culture of the Egyptians. In ancient Egypt, there was no Sabbath. In ancient Egypt, there was no Passover. In ancient Egypt, there was no Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the holy days, the sacred days, the understanding of geography, the understanding of the calendar was different between the ancient Egyptians and that of the ancient Israelites. So anybody who tried to sit there and state that the Israelites got their culture from the Egyptians must not understand that culture of Egypt, nor do they understand the culture of Israel. Let us understand that the culture of Egypt and Israel are different. When you look at the pictures, for instance, of the Egyptian men, be they the priests or otherwise, we see that their head is shaved. Some say that this is due to the Egyptians viewing their hair on them as being dirty. This is in sharp contrast to the culture of Israel, however. If you go to Leviticus 21, verse 1 through 2 and verse 5, we read, Speak unto the children of Aharon, the priests, and say unto them, They shall not make baldness on their heads. Now we see that the priests in Israel were not to make baldness on their head. Yet we see in the temples of Egypt, such as from Karnak and from Medinet Habu, we see that the priests are bald. Brothers and sisters, I would like to sit there and show this here is the image of an Egyptian priest. This right here is from the walls of Karnak and Medinet Habu in southern Egypt, where the priests were bald. The ancient Israelite priests, on the other hand, were not told to be such. Let's continue. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 7, verse 29, we read, Cut off the hair and cast it from thee, and take up lamentations upon high places, for Yah hath rejected the generation of his wrath. This shows that having a shaved head in the culture of Israel, even if you're not a priest, is viewed as a negative thing, not a way of being clean. Also, the ancient Israelites did not have what you call a side lock or prince lock. in the ancient days of Israel. In Daniel chapter 7 verse 9, we see in the culture of Israel that the prophet Daniel had a dream upon his visions in his bed. And it said that one of those, the ancient of days, did sit, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. Obviously, this image is not one of a bald person, as we see in the artwork of the Egyptians. The priests also in the future of the nation of Israel will not have bald heads, according to Ezekiel 44 verse 20. Let us continue on. The English word Egypt is from the Greek word Aegyptos, which was borrowed from the Egyptian word Hukapta, which is an Egyptian term meaning soul of Ptah, which was one of the Egyptian gods. The ancient Egyptian name for the country as Kemet means black land due to the alluvial deposits. And the word Deshret refers to the red land, which is the desert. Another name for Egypt was Tomeri, which means the land of the riverbank. The names of Upper and Lower Egypt were Tashmel, meaning sedge land, and Tashmehu, meaning northland. The ancient Israelites, however, called Egypt Mitzrayim, and the word Mitzrayim means double oppression or double straits. The word Sema Tawy in ancient Egyptian refers to unification of northern and upper Egypt. To this day, there are black people in Ethiopia and other countries in the continent of Africa that say they are Israelites, such as the so-called Falashas in Ethiopia. They were not taught what they do from either Islam or Christianity, despite what some black scholars state. Thus, the idea of the Torah, which is called the Orit by the so-called Falashas, being observed in any part of Africa as due to colonialism and imperialism is incorrect. If you want more history about the so-called philosophers, read the book Valley of Dry Bones by Rudolph Windsor. Some, such as Muwatta Ashby in his book Egyptian Book of the Dead, stated that the teachings of Akhenaten is the prelude to the teachings of Moses. Such a concept is shown to be false, since in the theology of Akhenaten, the sun was worshipped and revered. Now, according to the Torah, the sun is not a god and is not to be worshipped, for the sun is frowned upon and being worshipped in the culture of the Torah. If we will, we can go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 17 verse 2. We are in Deuteronomy in the scriptures, the 17th chapter. We're going to start in verse 2. If there be found among you within any of your gates which Yah thy God giveth thee, man or woman, that have wrought wickedness in the sight of Yah thy God and transgressed his covenant, and have gone and served other gods and worshipped them, either the sun or moon, or any of the hosts of heaven, which I have not commanded, and it be told thee, and thou hast heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain, that such an abomination was wrought in Israel. So that right there goes to show in the culture of Israel, in the Torah, the worship of the sun or the moon or the host of heaven is considered a to'eba, an abomination or a detestable thing. All right? Brothers and sisters into the Kemetic study state conflicting things concerning the Israelites. It is up to the Israelites to set the record straight. Akhenaten would have been deemed a pagan and according to the ways of the Torah. Also, one cannot break down the word Torah to Torah, then say Ra is the Egyptian sun god, and thus the Hebrews adopted Torah from Egypt. The Hebrew word Ra actually means evil, and to be honest, the Egyptians referred to their sun god by many scholars by saying Re and not Ra. The understanding of saying that Amun-Re is where the Hebrew got the word Amen from is also incorrect. In Egyptian, the word Amun means hidden. In the Hebrew, the word Amen means agreed. Two different languages which happen to have a word sounding similar but have different meanings. The people of ancient Egypt are being pimped by brothers and sisters who want to identify with Africa and blackness. Since Egypt has left us a lot of pictures and a very old form of writing, some brothers and sisters feel it necessary to say that this is us also. Yet before colonialism, we see that there are differences in the cultures of each place and what is referred to as Africa. Ethiopia, however, is hardly spoken of by many people. Ethiopia, Abyssinia, and Kush is one place. Sema Tawy, Kemet, and Egypt is another place. If somebody was to go into the sixth dynasty of Egypt and state that the pharaoh Pepi was the people and the ruler from Kemet, they would say you were correct. However, if you said the sixth dynasty rulers were the people from Kush who were rulers, they would say that you were incorrect. The ancient Egyptians did not claim to teach the Hebrews anything. The Egyptians were a great kingdom, and anybody who says otherwise is a liar. However, we, the children of Israel, were lied on by several. When Egypt itself in history doesn't work, many revert to Africa as a whole. In concluding this particular subject for this presentation, it is important to mention two things. Let us mention the fact that either an 18th dynasty pharaoh named Amenhotep III or a 19th dynasty pharaoh named Merneptah mentioned Israel. It's rare is Israel in what is referred to as the Merneptah Stella. The phrase reads as follows: Israel is wasted bare of seed. This shows that the Israelites were mentioned by the ancient Egyptians. The above means nothing to Israelites, but is a way to show that a pharaoh mentioned some of his enemies in southern Canaan, and we see Israel is mentioned. Some state that Israel on the Merneptah Stella is not Israel, but the fact remains that the L letter was written with the Egyptian R, as in the case of Merneptah Stella, in the cities that Shishak wrote about and with the walls of Karnak. Also, as stated previously by many other scholars, the Ipura papyrus, speaking of the exodus of slaves from Egypt, we see Ipura wrote part of the following: Indeed, scribes are killed and their writings are taken away. Woe is me because of the misery of this time. The above was said by Ipura in his papyrus concerning the situation of slaves exiting Egypt and the river turning to blood and the death of the firstborn and death upon murrain upon beasts. The Ipura papyrus distinctly says that scribes' writings are taken away. So we have to ask, do we have a complete story given to us by the Egyptians in these days and times? What were they trying to hide by killing the scribes? Brothers and sisters, this here is part of the Ipura papyrus, shown briefly earlier in this presentation. All right, you can look this up and research this matter yourself. All right, this is dated actually to what they refer to as the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. Shalom. Most High bless.